All right, so welcome class of 2026 to Algebra 2. This is the quiz you got Friday. Suggest you study for it. You know, these are the basic building blocks for this class. Slope is still a big thing. Slope is actually huge in Algebra 2, really big. So the formula for slope, if you need her, is that m, which we call slope, is y2 minus y1 sitting pretty over x2 minus x1. And we just get those from this guy right here. This guy is x1 and y1. And this guy is x2 and y2. And we just plug in. So I'm going to do 10 minus 7. And that is sitting pretty over 5 minus a negative 3. All right, take attention to the minus and negative. 10 minus 7 is 3. And when you take away a negative, you're actually doing addition. So 5 plus 3 is 8. Slope between those two things is 3/8, or rise 3, run 8. Moving on to the next one, which is oddly enough called number 3 when it's actually number 2. It's interesting. Use the graph of fx shown below to determine the following. 3, what are the zeros of f of x? Zeros are also known as x-intercepts. Okay? And they happen here, here, and here. So that's where you cross the x-axis. So they are at -1. Left goes -2, halfway between is -1. So they are x equals -1, x equals 0, and then x equals 2. Because those zeros are where the y value is 0. All right, 4, what is the average rate of change, also known as slope, over the interval from 0 to 2? So you talk about, and that needs to be changed on this one from, I need to go back and fix that. Let's say -1 to 1. I forgot to change the question, but it'll be fixed by the time you see this. So from -1 to 1. Now let's think about our order of pairs here. Here's where x is -1. The order of pair would be -1, 0. When x is 1, the order of pair is 1, 4. And we're going to do the same thing we did up here on the first problem. We're going to follow the same formula. We're going to do y minus y over x minus x. So that's going to be our average rate of change, also known as slope, abbreviated oddly enough with the letter m. 4 minus 0 is 4. 1 minus -1 is 2. And 4 over 2 reduces down to 2. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. 5, using the table below, find the average rate of change, aka slope, from x equals 4 to x equals 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these guys as though they're ordered pairs. This is the ordered pair 8, -20. And this is the ordered pair 4, 8. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did. The slope would be -20 minus 8, sitting pretty over 8 minus 4. That's going to give us -28 over 4, which reduces down to -7, right? Because 4 times 7 is 28. 6 is using your knowledge of PEMDAS. Okay, so PEMDAS, you probably hadn't heard of her in a while. Let's write out what that is. The P stands for parentheses, and this is also known as the order of operations, okay? P stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents. And we're going to put M and D together because we multiply or divide from left to right. It's not that we multiply before we divide. It just depends on how it's laid out. We're also going to put the A and the S together. We add or subtract, again, from left to right. So direction also matters. But anyways, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to handle the stuff inside the parentheses. So I need to figure out what 5 minus 3 is. 5 minus 3 is 2. So I just took care of the parentheses. The next thing I'm going to handle is exponents. That would be this piece right here. 2 squared is 4. So I evaluate that piece, I get a 4. Done. Next thing is to multiply or divide. This one just has multiplication. 4 times 4 is 16. So done. And now I add or subtract. 16 plus 4 is 20. That's order of operations, kids. Find the product of 2x minus 1 times x minus 5. You probably heard of this as the FOIL method. That was first outside, inside, last. First two terms, 2x times x is 2x squared. And we add in between, outside would be 2x times -5, and draw the arrows and lines. That's minus 10x. Inside, -1 times x is -x. And then last, -1 times -5 is a positive 5. And then we put like terms together. That'll give us 2x squared minus 11x, because a -10x plus a -x is -11x. And then we got the plus 5. All right, expand and simplify. If something is squared, write it twice. It's really that simple. I'm going to type that out for you because it's that big of a deal. If something is squared, write it twice. All right, that's what we do. We write it twice. So that becomes 3x minus 4 times 3x minus 4. If you don't write it twice, either on paper or in your brain, you will miss it. That's just what's going to happen. So we can do this one the same way we just did the other one. 3x times 3x is 9x squared. That's first. Outside, 3x times -4 is minus 12x. Inside, -4 times 3x is take away another 12x. And then last, -4 times -4 is positive 16. And that gives us 9x squared minus 24x plus 16. Now here's something cool. You've probably never seen it done. It's called the box method. It works really well when you're literally squaring something. You draw a square, and we're going to partition it off into 4 smaller squares. Along one side, we're going to put 3x minus 4, and along the other side, we're also going to put 3x minus 4. And then we're going to do what we just did. This is a very good layout for some kids. 3x times 3x, again, being 9x squared. 3x times -4 being -12x. 3x times -4 is another -12x. And -4 times -4 is a positive 16. And then we combine like terms, just like we just did. We still have the 9x squared. We're going to take away 24x, and then we're finally going to have plus 16. It doesn't really matter how you do it, you get the same thing. And there's a third way we could do this, but kids don't tend to like it. So I'm not going to talk about it. All right, simplify. 5x to the -3rd over 20x squared. So there's a rule out there. It says x to the -a, actually I use the letter n, textbooks use a, is 1 over x to the n. That is a rule of exponents, and you did learn that rule in Algebra 1. I know you learned that rule in Algebra 1 because I have walked by when Miss Garner was teaching that rule in Algebra 1. Now, here's what it says. If an exponent is negative, it is on the wrong side of the divisor. That's all it's telling you to do. It's telling you to shift. Obviously, we're going to do some work with the numbers too. Like you got 5 over 20. That's 1 and 4. We're going to shift this x to the -3rd down low, make it x cubed, and we also had an x squared. Now, you have another rule that's taught to you. It says x to the a times x to the b is x to the a plus b. And yes, Garner taught you that rule. 3 plus 2 is 5. X cubed times x squared is x to the 5th. All right, we got an easy one up next. Hopefully everybody gets it. That won't happen, but whatever. We got 5x minus 6 equals 2x plus 9. I like to shift my x's to one side. If you cross equality, you change your sign. And I like to shift my numbers to the other end. If you cross equality, you change your sign. That becomes a 9 plus a 6. Now 5 minus 2 is 3. Don't forget about the x. 9 plus 6 is 15. Last move, divide out that 3, and x is 5. Easy peasy. All right, here we got one that's going to require you to do some other stuff. We're going to play what I call the isolation game. I do all the easy stuff first. You always do easy first. The opposite of adding is subtracting. 18 minus 2 is 16. The opposite of multiplication is division. It turns out 16 is divisible by 4, so it's a worthy move to do. 4 over 4 cancels. X minus 1 is 4. The opposite of subtraction is addition. Therefore, x is 5. All right, number 12, we have an absolute value equation, which I doubt you remember how to do. You haven't done them since you were in Algebra 1, but you have done them. So here's the gist. You isolate absolute value and then write two equations. One as is. The second, you change the sign of the stuff inside. That's why you do that. The reason you do that is because if you talk about the absolute value, if you have a number whose absolute value is 10, so the absolute value of x is 10, that means that x is either 10, the positive, or negative 10, the opposite, because absolute value is the distance from 0. Whether you remember that or not, I don't know. First thing I'm going to do is the easy stuff first, which is to add 4 to 22. And I'm going to get kind of an ugly problem on this one. It wasn't meant to be a pretty problem. Your quiz will be a nicer number, but this is just a practice sheet. So the absolute value of 3 times x plus 1, you write that so it's more legible, is now 26, because 22 plus 4 is 26. Next move, divide out the 3, and we're going to have a fraction, but that's not a big deal. It's just 26 thirds. Nobody wants your decimals, okay? Nobody. Now we're going to write two equations. The first one is as is. X plus 1 is 26 thirds. Or the second one, which is negative x minus 1 equals 26 thirds. You'll notice I changed the sign on the stuff inside. And then we're going to do some math. The opposite of adding is subtracting. So this guy would be 26 thirds minus 1. 1 being 3 thirds. And 26 minus 3 is 3, so 23 thirds is one of my answers. I don't know why it's cutting it off. It's 23 thirds. Well, I know why it's cutting it off. Other one, the opposite of subtracting is adding. Negative x equals 26 over 3 plus 3 thirds, because 1 is 3 over 3. And if we add 26 and 3, we get 29. Now, we have to handle this negativity, so we divide both sides by the negative 1, or multiply if you're that person. And we get x is negative 29 thirds. It has two answers. All absolute value equations, generally speaking, I shouldn't say all, most absolute value equations have two answers, because you always have to write two equations. 13, we have something called factoring. The goal of factoring is to find the two things that multiply together to create the original polynomial. All right, so I'm going to talk about this in what's called standard form. It is written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And here we have an a value of 1, because it is 1x squared. So these are the easy ones. And remember, that is 1x squared. That is a hard concept for some kids to understand, because a lot of kids don't understand the understood. But that is 1x squared. So when a equals 1, your goal is to find factors of c, which is the constant, the number at the end, that add to b, which is the number in the middle. All right? Now, to create the x squared, you have to lead with an x and x, because x times x is x squared. Factors of 4 are simply 1 and 4. That's all they are. This would give me 4x, and this would give me an x. However, I need a negative 5x. Therefore, they both have to be negative, because negative x minus 4x is negative 5x. That's really how hard factoring is. It's not hard. I swear it's not. Well, it's hard for some, mainly because we don't try. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not hard, because I know for some of y'all it is hard, but it's mostly about effort. That's what it's mostly about. The kid who never takes anything home, doesn't ever figure out how to factor. The kid who's barely conscious in class, never figures out how to factor. Spend time on it. All right, 14, we got simplify the root of 80. So I've talked about some properties, and you may not believe me, but this is a property you were also taught. You were taught this property. the square root of a times b is the square root of a times the square root of b. Now, I happen to know that 80 is 16 times 5. I happen to know that, and that's true. 16 times 5 is 80. So I can think of this as the square root of 16 times the square root of 5. The square root of 16, everybody and their mama knows, is 4. That reduces down to 4 roots of 5. And the last thing you had on here was your bonus. It's solve for x using the quadratic formula. I gave it to you. It goes x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, now, don't be the dum-dum who thinks that a is x squared. A is just 1. It is the number in front of that position, because these things are written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And I know you're thinking, Milbrath, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yes, you were taught this in Algebra 1. B is the number in front of x. It is a 6. And c is the constant at the end, and she is 2. And now we're just going to plug in our little formula. X equals negative b, so x equals negative 6 plus or minus square root of. It says b squared. Take that 6 and square it. Take away 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2. And it's all sitting pretty over twice a. And again, a is 1. We have a negative 6 plus or minus square root. This is 6 squared, which is 36. 4 times 1 times 2 is take away 8. Both pieces sitting pretty over 2. Negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. 36 minus 8, I feel like 36 minus 8 is 28. And that root of 28 is over 2. The 28 is not over a 2. The square root of 28 is over 2. Big difference on that. Okay? Okay, make sure you know that. This is not root 28 over 2 like that. It is root 28 all over 2. So we can't do anything with that divide by 2. What we can do is we can think about the root of 28 being the root of 4 times the root of 7, because we learned our multiplication tables in 2nd and 3rd grade, didn't we now? And root of 4 is 2. So let's see what I have now. I have negative 3 plus or minus 2 root 7 over 2. The 2's cancel. I have a negative 3 plus the root of 7, or I have a negative 3 minus the root of 7. You see how it had x squared? X squared means 2 solutions, or none. Could be imaginary. Well, it means 2, 0, or none. Let me rephrase it that way. And there's your 2 answers. And that is your basics quiz practice sheet for Friday. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would say like and subscribe, but you're not going to do that. You're just trying to survive, right?